What's going on, folks? It's Larry at Packmasters Dog Training here. A lot of the questions and emails and phone calls I get have to do with the e-collar, of course. Everybody wants more information on the magic tool, so to speak. Everyone thinks it's a magic tool, and there's so many questions about it that I get every day. Now, I've done a couple of tutorials on the e-collar where I just explain exactly what I do and how I teach it, but they're old now. It hasn't changed much, but people have a harder time finding them on my YouTube page because they're way back, you know, and if I have I don't know, 150, 200 videos out there, they're harder to find. So I'm going to just start breaking it down again and hopefully answer some questions about usage of the e-collar, because I can't keep responding through emails to everyone who calls. All right, so I actually brought some notes here, so I try not to forget anything. Actually, what I have is, when I have a client or I do a seminar, I give everyone a handout, several pages of just different tips, the way I teach the e-collar, different training tips to make you a little more successful and make it a little easier. All right, so I'm going to just ramble on here. I don't know if it's going to take 5 minutes or a half hour. I really don't know. I'll try to do it without making everyone fall asleep. Okay, all right. So now, as you know, I've said it 1,000 times. I don't use the e-collar to teach anything. I don't teach anything with the e-collar. Okay, the e-collar is used to reinforce things the dog already knows very well, and the e-collar can be used to stop unwanted behavior once the dog has learned the language of the e-collar. Okay, let me repeat that. Once the dog is very literate to the language of the e-collar. All right, so remember that. I don't teach. I know many people do, and I'm not here to criticize anyone or disagree. I'm telling you what I do. You ask me what I do, so I'm telling you I don't teach anything with the e-collar. I teach everything through motivation, through food, through toys, through praise. Okay, now conditioning the dog to the e-collar, by far the most important part. All right, people move along way too quick with this tool. You have to take your time. You have to take it slow. You are teaching the dog a whole new language, something very, very foreign. All right, if you give the dog a little leash tug, or you bump him with your body, or you touch him with your hand, these are things that the dog understands. They don't understand this really weird stimulation on their neck from the e-collar. Even at the lowest level, they don't get it. So it's our job to teach them. All right, so I'll run through the conditioning part really fast because the videos are out there. So you know, when I condition the dog to the e-collar, I use a 15-foot line. I use training treats as long as the dog will take them. I use the mini educator for 99.9% of the dogs that I train. All right, with the dog on a long line, I teach the dog the marker word first, which I normally use yes. Okay, so I mean, I literally take probably 60 seconds where I'm saying yes, feed, yes, feed, yes, feed. Every time I say yes, the dog gets rewarded with a high value treat, just to get him to understand that when he hears me say yes with that kind of tone, something good is coming. All right, so then we start the conditioning. With the long line on, I find the dog's level, the lowest level possible that the dog feels, something the dog can barely feel. He's not even sure if he's feeling something. Most dogs start working in single digits, somewhere around a 6 or a 7. Once he gives me some kind of sign, this could be something very subtle. This could be to where the dog is, panting normally, his mouth is open. He's like this, and then he just stops panting. Okay, he's like, what was that? I felt something. Or he may look behind him, or you may see a little ear twitch or a little blink. It'll be something very subtle. That's where we start working. Okay, from that point, I'll use Luca's name here. Okay, I give the command. I say, Luca, come. Directly after the command, I tap the e-collar. I keep my e-collar on the continuous setting. I don't use the nick or momentary at all. I keep it on the continuous setting. All right, so I say, Luca, come. I tap right afterwards with very light straight line pressure on the e-collar. Very, very light. The second the dog turns to come my way, not when he gets to me, the second he makes the attempt to come my way, that's what I'm asking, I say yes and I reward. See, the dog knows the marker word, so when he hears it, that builds speed. All right, so let's say the dog doesn't come my way right away. I'll say, Luca, come, and I tap, little light leash pressure, and then I just, the cadence of the tap is like this: tap, 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 and the second he turns, the tapping stops. I mark it with a yes and then reward. Okay, not tap, 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 tap. You don't go crazy with these things. You don't force anything. Everything's very smooth and subtle, all right? All right, let's get through that. Then I do that for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. Later on, the next time I take the dog out, now I'm going to do something a little different. In that first section, I use a tap on the continuous button after the command. Here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the continuous button down first. I'm not going to release it. So I hold it down first. I say, Luca, come. The second he turns my way, I release the pressure from the e-collar. I take my finger off the button. The second he moves my way, I say yes, and I reward. All right? That's what we do. You know this. I've made plenty of videos, so let's get through that very fast. And I'll do that for 5 or 10 minutes. So during the conditioning phase, guys, I'll usually separate them at first few times, and then you can mix it up. You know, you could do it with the continuous before the command or the tap after the command. After a few sessions or a couple of days, it really doesn't matter. Read the dog. You know, you judge what works best for that dog. But the point is, in the beginning, I'm using the e-collar every time, and I'm rewarding every time, over and over, and mostly with just the recall, okay? Depending on the dog, if the dog is real sharp and the handler has good handling skills, I'll add the place command. So I like to do the opposite. Bring the dog to me, send the dog away. So I'll add the place command, and everything's the same, but basically the recall is the bread and butter here. And really, I'm not teaching the recall with the e-collar. What I'm doing is I'm teaching the e-collar through the recall. Okay, most dogs understand when you call them and pull a little on the leash, they get it. So what I'm doing is I combine the leash, the verbal command, and the e-collar all together. That's how the dog learns the meaning of the e-collar. And when we start, I do this over and over and over. Take your time with the conditioning phase. Don't rush it. The more the dog knows it, the better off you're going to be, because once the dog truly understands the meaning of this tool, where he's completely literate to this weird sensation on his neck, you'll be able to use it for everything. You'll be able to reinforce all known behaviors, and you'll be able to stop all unwanted behaviors super fast. I mean, just so easily, you know? So that's the conditioning part. In the beginning, the first phase. So remember, we got 3 phases of the conditioning. The first part is the conditioning part where we're using it every time and rewarding every time. So we want to work to get to that intermittent phase, that second phase. That could be after a week, that could be after 2 weeks, that could be after a month. You don't know. You got to judge the dog and where you're at with your training, how often you're training. You know, it takes practice, a lot of repetition. So when you get enough repetitions in, you'll know when it's time to move to the intermittent phase. So in the intermittent phase, now we're starting to wean away from using the e-collar and rewarding every time. And there's 4 combinations that we use during this phase, okay? 4. And you don't use them in order. You mix it up. This is where the dog's really starting to learn, okay? So the 4 combinations are, you're using the e-collar with reward, just like you did in the beginning. You're using the e-collar, no reward. You're using no e-collar with reward, and then no e-collar, no reward. You want to mix this stuff up, and you don't do it in order. And guys, just a side note, this isn't only for e-collar work. This is just for, you know, leash work, slip leads, whatever you're using. This isn't only for e-collar work. This is for dog training, period. So during this phase, you're practicing that, and you're mixing it up, and this is where you're going to take more time, because now you're really teaching the dog, and eventually you want the dog to respond to the verbal command all the time, all right? So in that second phase, you know, you could take your time here and spend a lot of time doing it. And then what you're doing, this is where you start adding some light distractions. Remember, when we first start, we're teaching with no distractions, nothing. So here we start adding some distractions. We can start adding a little more distance to the commands you're working. You can start going to new places and training in new strange places, because that alone is a distraction. So you have to do this stuff. If you want the dog to truly be successful, you have to do this stuff, all right? You have to. So you're going to spend some time in the second part of training here, the intermittent phase, but you got to practice those 4 combinations, and you mix it up. There's no rhyme or reason to it. Because in the third phase is basically the e-collar is there just in case you need it. This is the maintenance phase. This is where if you go out and your dog's going to be off leash, the e-collar is there. So for example, if you're out and about and you're in a public park and your dog's 50 yards away and you say, Luca, come, and he doesn't come immediately, you tap the e-collar right afterwards, he's going to turn, he's going to come to you. Plain and simple. If you want to reward the dog, you reward the dog. If you don't, you just tell him good job. You know, you don't have to carry around a bag of treats the rest of your life. But guess what? There's nothing wrong with rewarding the dog. Even when he didn't comply, but then he does, you can still reward that. You know, so again, really simple. This is really simple stuff, you know. But you got to take your time and teach it. But going through those two phases, I'm just looking at what else I have here now that will be able to help you. So again, ultimately, the dog needs to respond to the verbal command. That's always the goal of where we want to go. All right. Keep the sessions really short. You know, 10 minutes, no more than 10 minutes. Really, really simple. And plan on really practicing with this tool a lot for the next 4, 5, 6 months. Take your time. There's no rush. You're going to be with your dog for a long time, you know. But again, this is just a tool, guys. If you want the true success, you have to focus on the overall relationship. You've got to build that relationship. You got to have that bond. And that means a lot more than just obedience training. The stuff you're doing inside the home, okay, that makes the big difference. How you live with your dog dictates how your dog lives with you, all right? You want to treat your dog like a child or a baby, your dog's going to treat you like a dog, I promise you. So you got to know the difference. You have to know the difference. There has to be some rules and boundaries there, all right? So, you know, reward good behavior, whether you ask for it or not. You know, you don't have to ask for something to reward. If your dog does something that you really like, reward it. It's going to make it more likely to happen again. Your dog does something you don't like, correct it. Correct bad behavior, reward good behavior. Can you imagine how complicated that is? Holy crap. You do those little things there, you'll see a really big difference, I guarantee. But you have to do it. You know, you got to be consistent with this stuff. Consistency is really important, and practice. You have to practice. It takes time and repetition for these dogs to really learn just about anything you want to do, okay? You're going to teach your dog something, you got to show them what you want. You have to teach them, all right? You have to show them. And then once you show them, then you motivate them how to do it. And then once you motivate them through food, toys, praise, whatever, only then, once the dog truly knows something, that's where you can make the dog do it, okay? But until then, guys, you can't force a dog to do something that he's just not very sure of. It's just not fair, you know? It really isn't. You got to think about what you're doing here. And I'm just looking at some stuff that I hand out here, you know. Make sure the collar fits nice and tight. It's got to be snug. You know, it has to be. Probably one of the biggest mistakes people make that start training with the e-collar. I check it and it's always too loose. And they say, oh, that's real tight. It's choking them. No, it's not choking them. You got to put it tight. The collar has to make good contact. If it doesn't make good contact, what's going to happen is you're going to be checking for the dog's level and he's not going to feel nothing. And you're going to go higher, higher, higher. And then all of a sudden he feels something and boom, the e-collar is way too high. You don't want to do that. Put it tight right from the start. If he's going to be wearing it several hours a day, take it off, put it on the other side so he doesn't get irritated from wearing it in the same spot all the time, okay? But during the conditioning phase, while you're training, make sure if you're with him, the dog has it on. If you're not going to be with him, take it off, okay? Take it off. This is really, really important. Do not get rid of the 15-foot training line too quick. See that very often. The dog's doing great, the dog's responding every time, so people drop the leash, they get rid of it, and then the dog blows him off, he's not responding, and they start going up higher in levels. Listen, guys, if I have a dog at my house for 3 weeks, that dog usually will never see a correction from the e-collar the whole 3 weeks he's here. I take things really slow. I'm really conservative with this tool, but you know, I get tremendous results with it, and I'm producing happy dogs that are off leash, and I'm never correcting them. You don't have to. If you teach it properly, you don't have to correct the dogs. That's one of the most beautiful things about good e-collar training. All right. I'm trying to think what else here. Let me go through a few notes here. I'm trying to remember, guys, because you asked me so many questions, you know, and practice every place. Don't just practice at your house. Go to different places and practice. It's really, really important, you know. You got to get out there and do this stuff. But I'm just looking here. I get the same questions every day, you know, and I answer them and I send the emails, but it's getting more and more difficult to to do so. And so I'm just trying to think of the same things that I ramble off when I'm training a client or something. But the main gist, the most important thing that you can remember when you start this, take your time. You have to teach it. The dog doesn't know what that weird sensation means. It will never be uncomfortable or painful for the dog if you're doing it right. I'm just telling you that. Now, with that being said, let's say you have a problem like your dog goes outside and digs giant holes while you're in the house. Well, listen, if your dog has been trained and he truly understands the e-collar, then listen, this is great. You fix this very fast. You hide in your house or around the corner where the dog doesn't see you. You set the e-collar much higher than you would during his conditioning and training time. And the second he starts to dig, you correct it. You fix it. And most likely, you will only have to fix it once. And there you go. Your problem solved. There's a reason why underground fences work. All right? They stop the dog one time, he tries to go through. He says, oh, holy crap, that was not good. I'm going to stay right here. So these are the kind of things, guys, that keep dogs in the home. It stops people from taking their dogs to the shelters. The dogs are filled with shelters. The shelters are filled with dogs that could be so easily fixed. But you deal with the bullshit politics of a lot of these organizations that would rather kill a dog than fix it. And it blows my freaking mind, the stupidity of some people. Man, it pisses me off. It pisses me off. Go to any shelter in the country and you'll see so many dogs that are never going to make it out that would be so easy to fix. All right? So with this tool, with the e-collar, you have to take your time and teach it. Teach it. The majority of people out there are still just using it. They tell the dog what to do, it doesn't do, and they kick the dog's ass. It's bullshit. It doesn't work. You know, it doesn't work. Or the dog does something, oh, this is a good one. I get this. My dog started doing this, you know, let's say he started barking in the yard, so I'm going to go get an e-collar. Well, listen here, you dumbass. Yes, I'm calling you a dumbass. You're a stupid son of a bitch. That will do nothing. Train your freaking dog and stop being lazy, okay? Get the hooks out of your freaking pockets and pay a trainer. Pay a trainer and save your dog, because what's going to happen is it's going to wind up gone. That's it. So you got to learn what you're doing here. You know, train the freaking dog. It's easy. Spend a few dollars, hire a reputable trainer, and fix the dog. This tool is so valuable when used correctly. So please, please find someone who knows what they're doing. Teach everything through motivation. Positive reinforcement, man. Yeah, I'm on that side too. We do both. So let's put it this way. Clicker training and e-collars is a match made in heaven. It's a beautiful, beautiful match made in heaven. Master both, and it's endless what you could do for any dog. It really is. But you got to have both. One's not good without the other. Okay? Positive reinforcement is a beautiful thing. It's useless without the other side. E-collar training is a beautiful thing. It's useless without the other side. You got to put both together. You feel me? Peace. Hey, one other thing. Brush the dog's neck daily. Keep it brushed well. Some of you guys never take a brush to your dog. Brush the neck. Dead hair will prevent good connection with the e-collar. Okay, so keep it brushed really, really well. Keep it brushed. That's going to help with good contact also. And I'm sure I'm going to remember like 12 other things here when I'm done with this video that need to be done. Oh yeah, maybe I don't know if I mentioned this. Don't put the collar on your dog and then start training and then take it off when you're done. Put it on, go about your regular day. Play with the dog, feed the dog, whatever you're doing. But don't just put it on and start training. Put it on, let him wear it when he's with you. Then you train, you keep it on when you're done. All right? You go to bed at night, take it off, put it on the charger, and you start over the next day. Simple things. Just get in the habit, guys. Make this a part of your dog's life for at least a few months. But what's going to happen is after a few months, you're going to be hooked, man. You're going to be hooked because you're going to be able to provide so much more freedom and happiness for your dog. I promise. I promise you. Okay? That's it. I'm done. Over. Out. Oh, crap. One other thing I forgot. People keep asking me. Why do I condition both ways? With the continuous before and the tap from the continuous button after. Very simple. Several years ago, I went out to San Francisco and worked with someone that I consider to be a much better trainer than myself. And he was doing it. All right. I never used to do the continuous before the command until I went out and worked with that certain person out in San Francisco. I have a great deal of respect for. And to me, if I work with someone that I consider to be a lot better than myself, I'm going to pay attention to what they're doing. All right. I'm going to pay attention. And so that's what I did. And let me tell you something, it was a game changer. Tremendous. I had great results before with Happy Dogs. This changed everything, man. And I don't know the science behind it, but in my opinion, I believe the dog just learns how to deal with the e-collar, and he learns it inside out every way possible and just becomes very literate much faster. All right. So when I started conditioning the dog both ways and added marker training and treats to the game, that is a game changer, people. The sky is the limit. Trust me. That's why I do that. I hope this is the last time, but I'm sure I'll think of something else before I upload this. See ya. Going to eat.